Welcome to Kaiser Watch with John Kaiser. I'm your host, Jim Goddard.
John, what's coming up on the show today?
Well, today we're going to talk about potential paths that the United States can take with the incoming Trump administration.
What do you think about the outcome of the U.S. election?
Well, the Republicans got the votes from people who believed the MAGA movement, Make America Great Again, whose implicit assumption is that America is no longer great. And Trump managed to win all the electoral college votes that he needed, but he also got the popular vote, which he did not get with Biden or with Hillary Clinton. So, and they flipped the Senate. They now control that, and it looks like they will probably continue to control the House, and they obviously already control the Supreme Court. So Trump now has a mandate to do whatever he pleases. But what also struck me was that the people who did not vote for him, they're now in complete agreement that America is indeed no longer great. Nobody thinks America is great anymore. And this could be an interesting problem for Donald Trump, could even keep him from doing the bad things that he has promised to do. Now, the market went up substantially, the general market went up substantially on the day after. Wall Street was celebrating, the billionaire club was celebrating, but they should be thinking hard about why this vote went for Trump. And on the day after the election, the New York Times had an article called This is Why Trump Won. And it was by somebody called Daniel McCarthy, who I've never heard of, but he's the editor of a quarterly journal called Modern Age, a conservative review, and it's more of a small C conservative type of publication with an intellectual philosophical bent. And his article was very interesting. He said what this outcome is really a rebuke to both the Democrats and the Republicans, because the way Trump has managed to completely take over the Republican Party and being completely obnoxious in it with lies and viciousness and misogyny, all the types of things that you're not supposed to do on the political stage, he has managed to completely demolish the Republican Party establishment. And the Democrats, well, they've always been kind of part and parcel with the Republicans in terms of all the policies in the last 40 years. So he kind of lays it out that, well, with Reagan, we ended up with something called neoliberalism, and the word liberalism doesn't even really belong in that. It's not the kind of liberalism you normally mean by it. It's this notion that in the 80s, the Reagan-Thatcher revolution pushed by the Chicago School and Milton Friedman was that that there should be minimal government and there should be unfettered free markets. Capitalism should be allowed to solve all problems, and the government's only role is to enforce property rights. And that kind of really got rolling when the Cold War ended, and this enabled China to come out of nowhere as a former communist nation, now a hybrid capitalist communist nation with very weak environmental standards and a very large and hungry and poor population willing to work hard. And what neoliberalism allowed, and it became known more as globalized trade, is allowed capital to move production capacity into the cheapest jurisdiction anywhere on the planet and then ship it anywhere else. And that really started kicking off in the 2000s. When the China supercycle started, that's when you saw manufacturing jobs decline significantly in the United States. They've recovered somewhat since then when Obama was elected in 2008. But they're right now, for the past couple of years, they have been flatlining. So that was a lot of meaningful jobs that a lot of people lost, and they were disgruntled by these economic elites, and they were either, didn't matter whether they were Democrat or Republican, both of them pretty much supported it. And one of the things that this also encouraged, what globalization encouraged, was a NIMBY mentality in the United States. This American exceptionalism where everything dirty is made somewhere else. Well, we will keep our shores pristine. We will ban exploration and development to the U.S. Forest Service, the Bureau of land management. All these organizations were repackaged to become basically blockades for exploration and development. And this helped the United States develop a very serious raw material import vulnerability that's eventually going to harm them. Now, along with the globalization, there was in the 90s and 2000s the deregulation of the financial system, and Wall Street and then invented the securitized mortgages, which became the basis for a real estate bubble and really making people dream about, the younger generations having dreams about owning their own home, even as manufacturing jobs were disappearing and turning into service type job in the hospitality industry, in the healthcare industry. These are all service type jobs, and of course they deregulated the pharmaceutical industry, and that gave us the wonderful Sackler family and their narcotic OxyContin, peddled by the medical establishment as an addictive painkiller that proved hugely popular with many, especially in these regions where people lost their meaningful jobs and ended up with shit jobs, and they ended up getting sick from this and dying. And now, of course, even that's gone. Now that's been replaced by fentanyl, which the precursors are made in China, and the drug cartels, they're no longer really bothering to employ ordinary workers to grow and harvest marijuana, opium, and cocaine. Now they just import these precursor chemicals and make the fentanyl cheaply, cut out a lot of the earlier workers there, and then peddle it to all the addicts in North America. And McCarthy also takes on the whole neoconservatism, which was the hawkishness, the George W. Bush period, where the Republicans were very much into the military-industrial complex. It's one of the military defense budget it dwarfs all other nations' defense budgets, and their adventures in Iraq are based on fabrications simply to create cash flow for the military-industrial complex. That also became a bit of a problem with people, and of course there was a problem with Democrats, but again, the Democrats aren't necessarily the leadership. People like Hillary Clinton voted, yes, let's go invade Iraq on this bullshit stuff that fake intelligence was drumming up. So that was being McCarthy takes that on, and in the end, he's sort of saying that everybody is pissed off, and even the Democrats, well, they didn't vote for Trump because they don't like his nastiness, his lyingness, his viciousness, his vindictiveness. That's just not who they are. But in a sense, they agree to that with which, what was his appeal to so many of his voters. Many, the Christian fundamentalist base, it was all with him. For obvious reasons, he facilitated some of their goals. He is not exactly the kind of person that exemplifies what they're supposed to be all about. But I think at the bottom of all this, there is this sense that the elites, the so-called leadership elites, they have served the plutocrats themselves and really let the general population down. And now that both groups think America is no longer great, everybody's waiting to see what will this new administration do that controls all branches of government. And we are going to be watching to make sure you are making things better rather than worse.
What do you think Trump will do to make America great again?
Well, everybody's been freaking out about all his his promises that he has made, and he's emphasized, "I will keep my promises." He is a chronic liar, so we don't need to hold him to this promise. And what people don't like about these, or worries them about these promises, is that he wants to turn the United States into an autocracy like Xi's China and Putin's Russia, one where hyper surveillance is used to detect and stamp out dissent and criticism. The people behind Project 2025, they go even further. They're members of his base, which is not the entire group that voted for him. They want to turn America into a patriarchal Christian fundamentalist theocracy. And that has also people concerned, especially here in California, the fifth biggest economy in the world, nearly 40 million people, the most populous state, and overwhelmingly vote Democrat. There's still a lot of Trump voters here, more in the rural parts. But a state like this, it could be a nation all by itself, and to suddenly be told you're going to have to teach creationism in class, and gays are going to be banned, and not going to be allowed to marry or anything, that's not really going to happen. And Gavin Newsom didn't make much noise about throwing his hat in the ring to fill Biden's shoes when he finally decided to step down. That's because he's potentially leader of an independent country with a bigger economy than Canada and more people than Canada. So the idea that a group pushing a fundamentalist Christian theocracy that puts women in their place as breeding machines for men, polishing their boots, cooking their meals, and that sort of stuff, that's probably not going to go anywhere. And I think that Trump is not going to let those guys in the door. And, he's never read the Bible. His VP, J.D. Vance, has read the Bible, and he could serve the theocrats very well. So he knows that he's going to be discarded as a useful idiot as soon as he's let a theocracy get erected in the United States. So I don't think we really need to worry about the theocratic ambitions of the Project 2025 crowd. Now, what about his, tendency to be vindictive and his promises to use the political machinery to go after everybody who opposed him? He's being egged on to do that by all the grifters, thugs, and charlatans who promoted him during his campaign. But, frankly, he may take MAGA seriously and say, let's get the job done. Now, Kamala's campaign had been about, prosperity and hope, and his had been all about gloom and doom, how everything has become shitty. But do people, after they voted for him, want to continue to think everything is shitty and going to hell in a handbasket and nothing can be done about it? She lost because she was perceived as part of the establishment, the Republican Democrat leadership establishment that has run things for many, many decades. So he kind of is the agent of change that Obama claimed to want to be, but as soon as he was in power, he was soon pulled into the whole existing apparatus and never really did any changes other than get Obamacare created. So I think the best way to make America better is not to impose a whole bunch of tariffs and instantly create inflation. So when your Trump voter goes to the Walmart store and everything's suddenly 60% higher, because it's the importers who pay the tariffs, not the exporters, and the importers simply add the price. So that means you're going to see the cost of goods go up by the inflation. Plus, there's going to be the retaliatory tariffs, so that's not going to help boost jobs. And the private sector, because there is this 4-year election cycle with the midterms in there where the balance of power can shift, it takes a while to reshore manufacturing capacity, and it's not going to be done before the effect of inflation of tariffs is felt by everybody, and then there's another political upheaval where they bounce out the people, because the election was partly lost because of the inflation Biden inherited from the COVID rebound. So what can he do to actually have jobs get created? Well, the obvious thing is to do what they never let him do during his first term. And that's when the Republican establishment was still pretty much in charge. And theoretically, they are against increasing the national debt, though no Republican administration has ever failed to increase the national debt by a greater amount than any predecessor. They didn't really let him do anything with this infrastructure renewal. Well, now that he's destroyed the Republican establishment and he's already thinking about renewing the 2017 tax cuts and increasing more, and he's going to learn pretty quickly that tariffs are not going to replace lower taxes. The debt's going to keep going up. And then he's got this problem. He needs to make America great again for everybody. So one of the areas is that the infrastructure has been neglected for many decades. And although he's a climate change denier, he's not so stupid that he can't see that we are having ever hotter temperatures every year, more disruptive storms that the world is heating. He can deny that has anything to do with fossil fuel combustion, but he can see that there is a major problem. And so why not go on an infrastructure spending boom? Don't do fiscal stimulus, spending more money on keeping aging boomers alive forever. People who are no longer productive, who are in their sunset years. Let's renew America. Let's rebuild the energy grid. And this is where Elon Musk may end up playing a useful role. Right now, the half of the population that didn't vote for Trump, they are the ones who mainly own Tesla. And the way he used X in the name of absolute freedom to basically use it as a megaphone to push conspiracy theories and lies and use algorithms to promote his agenda, his brand is kind of toxic right now. So he's got to figure out how to get Republicans, the Trump voters, to buy his Tesla. Now, one of his problems is that the Chinese EVs, like by BYD, they are cheaper and perhaps even better than his Teslas. But Biden has already embraced the tariffs that he introduced during his term. And by the way, he broke a major neoliberal taboo by introducing those tariffs. Now, they weren't particularly helpful, but Biden kept some of them, and now he's pursued a more selective targeting to protect industries such as the car industry. This is the return of industrial policy, which was taboo under the neoliberal principles of the Democrats and Republican leaderships of the past 40 years. So what if electric vehicles are going to be a part of the future, and it's just a question of whether it's sooner or later? How hard would it be for Trump, if he's already prepared to ditch the Christian fundamentalists and say, no, we're not going to have you guys get really extreme about abortion. No, we're not going to have you teach fun creationism in school and make our kids super stupid. So he's already alienated them. They can't get rid of him. The Democrats are sitting there. They'll vote for anything sensible that the Republican side, that the sensible part of the Republican House and Senate can come up with. Why don't we simply rename the energy transition the adaptation to climate change, but let's encourage stuff like electric vehicles because they are new and different. They are electricity based. We're going to get our electricity from natural gas. We're going to be continuing to drill for oil and keep the fossil fuel engines going until they're basically replaced. In fact, in China, the internal combustion engine fleet's almost 50% replaced by now in terms of sales. So this will eventually come to America also. And so instead of being fundamentally hostile towards electric vehicles because somebody along the way, it was probably the Republican establishment, the fossil fuel guys who came up with this in the first place. Why not say, it's maybe not such a bad idea? And this is how Musk's Tesla could end up being embraced by the audience that has shunned an electric vehicle like that. So I think that this idea will also appeal to the younger generations, because right now the medical budget, the federal budget, much of it goes to Social Security and Medicare, and that's basically retirees, older people. So you're going to chop that? Well, you can't chop that. Then you got interest payments. Now his tariffs will increase inflation. It will increase interest rates if Trump lets the Federal Reserve remain independent in terms of dealing with inflation. But let's shift to infrastructure renewal. The debt's going to keep going higher, and if we also tax cuts, yeah, so what? We'll just print more money and get this economy rolling again and build the infrastructure needed to secure the future, and maybe it'll even make a difference towards the net zero emission targets of limiting the change to 1.5 degrees to 2 degrees by 2050. Though the bad news today is that apparently for 2024, we have averaged 1.55 degrees above the pre-industrial level in what is the hottest year so far. So I think he'll end up changing all his views and not pursue all this vindictiveness, because he is now under the microscope of all of America, waiting for him to make America great again.
Although the general equity markets went up in the Trump victory, the resource sector and metal prices, including gold, did not. Will the resource juniors remain stuck in a bear market?
Gold dropped that day because the market expects the Trump term to bring back inflation. And you would think, well, if they expect that, shouldn't gold be going higher? Well, the perverse thing is that right now, inflation is still low. It's down 2.4% or so, and and Powell has had a couple of rate cuts already, and the expectation had been for rates to go lower. But now, if Trump does come in with these brutal tariff policies, that will bring inflation back with a vengeance. And assuming that he does not turn Federal Reserve into what Turkey's Erdogan did with his central bank, his strategy for fighting inflation was to lower interest rates with disastrous consequences for inflation. It actually, surprise, surprise, made it go up. So the investors are thinking we need to buy dollars, and right now we can buy short-term treasuries, which are almost the same as the long-term treasuries. The 10 years actually went up in the past couple of weeks as the market started to sense a Trump victory, and went up more the day after in terms of yield, which means if you own it, the price is actually going down. And unlike the short-term ones where you just wait to get your 100% on the day that they are due, the longer-term bonds, you're stuck with the capital losses if you bought at a particular yield, and the yield ends up going higher. So the U.S. dollar's going up, gold's going down, because people expect the interest rates to rise as the inflation kicks in, which makes gold less desirable. But that's only temporary. One of the things I did not talk about earlier is the geopolitical conflict between the global West and the global East. And Trump has been pretty clear that he is isolationist, that he does not want to be the military superpower that keeps South Korea and Japan from being bullied by China, keeps Europe from being bullied by Russia. He hasn't said exactly what he would do to end the Ukraine war. Hopefully it's not dropping a nuclear bomb on Moscow. It most likely means that he will simply stop supporting Ukraine and hand it over to Russia, who will then annihilate the Ukrainian identity and then set his sights on the rest of Europe, Eastern Europe at least, that used to be part of the Soviet Empire. And should this happen, the rest of the world will realize that, yes, Trump is serious. And China will probably call his bluff on Taiwan. They'll just say, enough, we're going to annex Taiwan. End the story. What are you going to do about this? Start a nuclear war? No. You're already starting a trade war with your tariffs and that, which means we're not going to be trading that much with you. So we want to secure our backyard. We don't want you there anymore. You can take your aircraft carriers back to Hawaii and hang out there. This is our backyard. And the global South will, of course, see that it's better to be allied with the global East, with China and Russia. Now Trump may go into Iran and encourage Israel to do a serious number on Iran, and the reason would be not to finally get rid of the Ayatollahs over there, but simply to disrupt oil production in that area, get the price of oil way up there, and that, of course, would benefit the American oil producers very well, because he'll have loosened regulations somewhat to allow them to pump more oil. So they will profit from that and perhaps start shipping oil elsewhere in the world, because it's not really coming from the mess that the Middle East has turned into. So the rest of the world is going to continue to look at how do we rely less and less on the U.S. dollar. Obviously, the other currencies in the world are not something you want to really rely on. I mean, you will have to use it, but the demand for gold from non-U.S. sources is going to continue to go up as the world transitions away from United States, as it transitions away from its role as the world's superpower. That's kind of the glue that holds the whole global West together. So that's bullish for gold. In terms of implications for the resource juniors, I think the big problem is what I mentioned at the beginning, the American raw material import vulnerability that evolved over the last 30 years as the neoliberals celebrated the success of globalized trade, of the shifting of production elsewhere. We keep our backyard pristine. We get everything from dirty places like China and Congo and other parts of Africa and Russia and that, where it's they have no environmental controls. Everything's run by oligarchs. But if we stop having this globalized system where we can get it from all those places, we have a physical existential problem. And the only way to solve that is to loosen up the rules in the U.S. Forest Service and the Bureau of Land Management, not eliminate them, but stop creating obstructions for the sake of blocking stuff. The decision to block that road in Alaska to the Ambler copper project of Trilogy Metals in South 32, that was absolutely insane. The stock actually jumped 60 cents to $1.40 the day after, because it is such a no-brainer that you need to develop this mine. This is not the same situation as Northern Dynasty's Pebble mine, which is huge and could provide an awful lot of copper, but that is upstream from a major fishery that impacts other industries. So there is an entrenched opposition that includes Trump's own sons to that ever going forward. That will go forward in the second half of the 21st century, when climate change, global warming, has wiped out the salmon fishery and there's no industry left to protect downstream. And so if we get a loosening of these regulations so that they're not enforced and delayed and obfuscated and changed all the time for the sake of blocking exploration and development, so they're just done quickly and efficiently, that will create a boom of exploration in the United States. The wild card, of course, is Canada. It's obsessed with its First Nations reconciliation strategy, where the First Nations are in charge of everything. Nothing can be done without their approval, and Canada's just sitting there, missing an opportunity to revive its own exploration and development industry, because it has not figured out a way to streamline the consultation and permit approval process, and that needs to change with tariffs and that coming from the United States. If Trump does pursue that path, Canada is going to have to step up its game, because whatever it is that it's manufactured, it's probably not going to be competitive in the United States. So raw materials is where the United States, where Canada needs to put its focus. So I'm optimistic that all of this will be beneficial for the resource juniors. I'm hopeful that all the nasty things Trump has promised to do will not come to pass. And it could be that at the end of his term, he actually is acknowledged as having accomplished something very important, a fundamental revolution in the sort of paralysis that the United States has come in. And this billionaire clubs that's been supporting him, they may be in for a surprise at how this all works out for them. It may not result in them living in their gated communities as philosopher kings, lording it over everybody else while it all decays and while they celebrate like Nero fiddling in Rome. No, they will be quite surprised. And if this turns out to be the case, the history books may end up saying that Trump was really a performance artist who from the very beginning understood that he needed to destroy the Republican Party and its secret alliance with the Democratic Party and rebase what the United States is all about going forward. We'll see if that happens. We'll see if he can go that path or if he ends up just being a mean-spirited, nasty old man who lets the theocrats in and turn the United States into an autocracy.
John, thank you for the update.
You're welcome, Jim.
We've been speaking with John Kaiser. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on Kaiser Watch are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as a recommendation to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at kaiserresearch.com.